So I wanted to make a quick update video on what the build is looking like in 0.4. If you're new here, I made a build guide on the build that I played in 0.3 that I am continuing in 0.4 because it is extremely unethical. I predicted a lot of things in the video and all the predictions seem to be exactly on point. We are using staves and most importantly, we are using an item that is extremely strong. I've played PoE2 every league and I think this is the most unethical thing I have ever seen. So, disclaimer, you're gonna see some crazy footage in this video. As of right now, I am top 9 on the ladder. I went pretty hard this league and I will continue going. I think I might even reach level 100. I have not leveled the character, but since this build is just practically invincible, dying is really hard. So I might actually get to level 100 this league. So what exactly am I referring to? What is this broken interaction that I keep, hinting about? And that is this unique belt called Soul Tether. In my last video, I said that this will be a really OP item if we can remove the downside, which is losing 5% of your max energy shield a second, and replacing that with like anything else that is not breaking the build basically. Well, it turns out you can definitely do that, and you can make this belt extremely good. Mine is not crazy. It can get a lot crazier, but to explain how exactly does this interaction work, let's start from the bottom. We're using this Ascendancy node from Blood Mage that makes it so that we can leech life with spell damage. This is vital and the only reason all of this works. Then we're using unique gloves called Aziri's Acuity, which makes it so that our critical hits are instant leech. So we're now leeching life with spells and it is all instant. Then we're getting an anoint called Fast Metabolism, which makes it so that whenever we leech, the excess life that we cannot currently have due to us being full life is stored in an internal buffer and it will take life out of that buffer the moment we lose it. So it's almost like a battery that we're charging that lasts for the duration that leech usually lasts, which is 3 seconds. So for 3 seconds, we're storing these stacks of leech, and you can have as many stacks of leech as, hits of damage you've dealt. You can have, hundreds of these leech stacks that it will just keep taken out of the buffer that lasts for 3 seconds. And on top of all that, we now have a unique belt that says, hey, your life leech applies to energy shield as well. So with all of this combined, you can probably see where this is going. The build is unethically tanky. You are basically invincible. The only way you can practically die is 2 cases. Either you get one shot, which, happens, but you also have an Ascendancy node that you will be taking that says 25% of life loss from hits is prevented, and then that much life is lost over 4 seconds instead. So if let's say you have a health pool of 10,000, you're essentially a health pool of over 12,000 because a lot of that damage that you're taking, 25%, is going to be dealt over time instead of instantly. And since we have this, massive life leech buffer, you're essentially just taking 25% less damage. The other way you can die is due to a combination of some effects and modifiers on abyssal monsters. Abyssal monsters can spawn with a modifier called Shade Walker, which makes them teleport on top of you and create desecrated ground from where they're standing. Now, this desecrated ground is the worst modifier in the game. It is a status effect that makes you unable to recover life and energy shield, so it completely bricks our build, and the way to basically counterplay is immediately notice when this happens, get off the desecrated ground, and you will immediately recover all of your life because you will cast yourself to 1 HP in about 0.1 seconds. You will immediately drop to 0 HP. And, if you don't notice that you're no longer casting and that you are now taking damage from your energy shield, if you don't get off of it fast enough, you're dead. On top of all that, bleed and poison goes through energy shield. So if you happen to be bleeding or poisoned while you're on desecrated ground, you are going to die even though you have energy shield remaining. That's why I swapped out my freeze charm into a bleed charm. I only have 2 charm slots due to, unlucky on getting a really good belt, but it just had 2 charm slots. So that's unfortunate, but it is safer to be frozen than it is to be bleeding. And that says a lot. That's the only way you will die with this build, and that's the only way I've died. This happened to me twice in one day. We lost 2 maps, and these are really expensive group play maps. They're like 4 or 5 div each. So it is, really annoying. Let's talk about how exactly do you get this belt. It is pretty much a very much core component now with together with a series acuity. How do you get the soul tether that has, the downside of losing energy shield removed and replaced with something that is actually useful? And that is due to a new currency called the Architect's Orb that comes from the new League mechanic. This orb allows you to change a corrupted item unpredictably, and one of the outcomes is it will remove a line of text from a unique item and it will replace it with a different mod. Soul Tether has 4 different mods you can replace it with, and one of them is actually really good. It's not really intuitive to the average person, but because you have instant leech, expanding the buffer duration due to leeching slower is an actual mechanic. If I have a modifier that says I leech life 25% slower, that means that I will now recover the HP that I would usually recover in 3 seconds 25% slower, meaning that buffer expands to 3.75 seconds. In this case, to our build, that basically means, hey, all of these life leech stacks that you're storing in the buffer, instead of lasting for 3 seconds, they're gonna last for 3.75 seconds. So leeching life slower is an actual buff. These belts are skyrocketing in price right now. I bought mine for 1 divine. It's currently worth like 20 divines already. And I believe after making this video, depends on how popular this is going to be, it might skyrocket to oblivion. So, abuse early and abuse often, as my pubgooners say. If you do want to try this build, I have made a build guide on my channel. I will link it in the description. It goes a little bit more in depth into the build, and it has made predictions in 0.3 that is fully accurate currently in 0.4, so the build is fully valid. We're using staffs, we're using the unique belt, and every other piece of information is very much up to date. I also stream on Twitch every single day for an absurd amount of hours, reaching some peak unemployment levels. So if you do have questions and you want to hang out or just overall interested in watching some group play, hey, feel free to stop by, and I really appreciate you clicking on this video. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye. Would be a fearless streamer, right?
This is in the boss room.
Be careful. That might kill.
Yeah.
I meant for.
I took damage, bro.
Surfing,
Trust.
not for you.
How does this thing have 100 million HP?
118.
Oh.
What the?
Oh,
What?
but this amount of loot, that's worth it.